Hi everybody, this video is going to be on the rubric I'll be using to grade your revised paper. This is going to be due at the end of the week, though you're going to have a revision done for Thursday, and how it's different than the first one. In the first one, you remember, and I meant it, I really wanted you to get something done. And I also had multiple videos walking you through formatting, right? So this was the first rubric. So I looked, did you have the MLA and page numbers, right? Did you have a thesis and topic sentence? And they were related kind of basic stuff, and how was your in-text and works cited and the word count. This entire thing was worth 10 points, right? So not a lot of high stakes as far as points go, but as far as formatting, getting your thoughts out there, very important to have something done, which is why I always have the first draft, not a lot of points, but it actually is very important, as you know, with what you're going to be doing next. So this was the draft. This was the rubric for the draft. Now this is the rubric for the finished paper. And what you will see is all of that stuff that was almost the entire, all your points, having it in the right style. Now that says MLA, but for those couple of you out there doing, well, actually the one person out there doing APA, you're doing a great job. Keep doing APA, and I'll be looking at it that way. But the APA, the grammar, the word count, because this is 1022, right, and you should have already, either you passed Composition 1 or you've done the equivalent, this is sort of the expectation that you have that in pretty decent working order. Not perfect. I mean, if you have one grammar error, I'm not all of a sudden going to throw you out the door, because that's crazy. At least I think it is. But if you have a number of them, right? And the way I look at grammar errors right here is if you have a comma splice, and then that error shows up multiple times, to me that's one error because you're missing the comma rule. So it's not that you can, if you have something that you're still working on, like a comma splice, that's one error to me, right? Now, of course, if it's something like complete sentences and you've got 16 sentence fragments in your paper, that's going to, of course, have more weight. So one of the things I'm going to look at is the basics. Do you have it in the format? Have you got the word count plus or minus 10%, give or take, right? Intro and conclusion. Using that example that we have, do you have an introduction that's unique and grabs our attention and makes us interesting? Do you have a conclusion that wraps things up, right? Oftentimes referring back to the introduction and gives us a nice sense of closure. And there's 3 levels of that. Thesis and topic sentences stays there because this is one of the ways that I can make sure you get credit for organizing your thoughts, even if the way that you organize them miss in some places, and I'll explain that. So the thesis is your main idea, and that should really cover everything in your paper. And then the topic sentence, right, is everything in the paragraph. Now they need to be related, and that's how your paragraph holds its cohesion, right? You have a thesis that says I'm going to talk about physical cost of PTSD, and then each section is a different physical cost. Oh, yep, it's all tied together. So I'll be looking at, is this thesis, this, for those of you who made a question instead of a statement, right? Now, here's what I got to go back and make sure my thesis statement is a statement, is specific, covers everything in the paper. Now, the other part, if your thesis and your topic sentences are all related, good. That means your paper will be coherent. But the other part is you're actually, what's the information in here? So it says, and this is for the high level, paper holds the reader's attention throughout and makes a case that's logical, supported by research, and asks and answers interesting questions that goes beyond the obvious, right? So, and what do I mean by going beyond the obvious? If you said something like, when people, if you put a gun to somebody's head, they will most likely do something that they wouldn't normally. Yes, thank you. I think most of us know that. That doesn't mean it can't be your starting place, right? But okay, now going deeper, what are you going to tell us that isn't obvious, right? That you actually went and got some research on, which leads us to the last one. You're supposed to have 3 or more sources, right? And it's not just, hey, I grabbed something. So I'll be looking at, do the sources you use really add to your argument That's on the high end, and on the low end, it's the source just feels like it was thrown in. And I gave you some examples in the earlier video of sources people brought in that were really, right on point, and you want to make sure all of your sources are just as helpful, right? So for right now, you are revising your paper on Thursday. I'll have a spot for you to turn them in. And then over the next couple of days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you're going to have time to read your fellow students' papers in a group. They'll be reading yours and giving feedback. And I wanted you to see this now. So number one, you can see what I'm looking at. And number two, when you're in groups starting Friday, right? I'm going to have a handout that's going to help you with this and remember these kind of things. So the feedback that you give them will be most helpful. That's the rubric for our paper.